Hey everybody, it's Dalton. Today's Monday the 12th. I'm out here at Lake Nacimiento and just doing some fishing. I wanted to do a little video on the Senko. I personally feel the Yamamoto Senko is very likely the best bait ever made. The way Gary Yamamoto puts the amount of salt and whatever formula he uses, it causes the bass to hang on to it a little bit longer. So there's a couple of ways that I like to rig these things, and I went through them today. There's a couple of ways that I like to rig a Senko that works really well for me. Now I had to put this one on a bait caster. I was using a spinning rod earlier. I recommend using a spinning rod when you're doing a basic wacky rig, okay? Thing about a wacky rig, you know, I personally believe that a wacky rig with a Senko works its best. I got this thing in my face. Works its best weightless. Now you can put a nail in it, but it changes the whole thing. It's going to go nose first. It's going to drop a lot faster. It's even going to work different on the bottom. That's your Nico rig, and I like a Nico rig as well. But just purely a wacky rig, I believe it is best weightless, because these worms are designed for that. I usually use a little octopus hook. This is a size, I believe this is a size 2 Gamakatsu. And when I do a wacky rig on a Yamamoto Senko, I don't use a ring. The ring tends to just tear up the bait. So what I do is I will just rig this thing right straight in the middle, just like that. And the biggest thing I caution you about this bait, and it was a couple of mistakes that I was making with it. Gary Yamamoto, one of the guys that works for him, did a video, and he talks about how Gary Yamamoto fishes this thing. And there's two things that really struck me in what he said. One, Yamamoto says, don't be in a hurry when this thing's falling. Let it fall all the way to the bottom. You don't really have to do anything to it. If you want to give it a little twitch here and there, that's fine. But you really don't have to. The way this thing falls is it just kind of has this little twitch and movement as it goes down. And bass are in all through the water column. Some of them will be on the bottom. Some of them are swimming up higher in the water column. And this thing's going to make its way by that bass because it's weightless, right? It's just going to slowly descend in front of that bass. As far as line size, probably the line size I use the most is 10-pound test. But if you want, line size is really going to base the rate of fall. If you want this thing to fall faster, use 6-pound test, 6 or 8. I will use 10 or 12-pound test. I know some guys that will use up to 17-pound test. Okay, it just slows the rate of fall. So if you're fishing really shallow water with big giant largemouth, I would use heavier line, like 15 to 17-pound test, and let this thing fall even slower. So the wacky rig is one of the best techniques in the springtime. There we go. So another technique that works really well is you see behind me all these rocks and these bluff walls. If I'm at Santa Margarita, I'm fishing probably some vegetation, grass, and laydowns, but you just can't beat a Texas rig. What I do is I typically will use an 1/8 ounce weight. It's a tungsten weight. 15-pound test, Seaguar and Physics fluorocarbon is the one I use the most. The 5-inch Senko, and I use a 3/0 extra wide gap hook. I used to use a 4/0, and I found that the 3/0 works a little bit better for me. And the color of the worms that I'm using out here right now are just green pumpkin with some purple and green flake, kind of a bluegill color. This thing works really well. You can throw it in these rocks. Sometimes you get hung up, you just go up and pop it out. You can throw it in grass, but I Texas rig a lot out here in these rocks because I don't get hung up near as much. And all I do is I just throw this thing in there and I just slowly drag it over the top of those rocks. I can feel every rock because of that tungsten weight. But there are times that the bass, they'll just take this thing as soon as you put it in front of them. Nothing like the old Texas rig Senko. I love it. So these are two ways that I really like to fish the Yamamoto Senko. My personal belief, it's probably the best bait ever made. It has contributed to a number of huge tournament wins, and I just love the thing. It's nice and heavy, loaded with salt. Whatever that formula is, that bass will hang on to it. You don't have to, get real quick with your hook setting. You can let that bass get it, and you're going to hook them more that way. So if you haven't fished a lot of Senkos, there's other ways to rig them, but these are my two favorite rigs. A weightless wacky rig and a Texas rig. Those are the two ways that I love to fish a Senko. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm going to be back out here later this week, and I'll put together another fishing report. But today I just wanted to share with you the two ways that I like to throw a Senko, and I've caught a lot of fish on those Senkos, and I've caught some big fish on them too. Well, thanks everybody. I'll talk to you next time.